My name is Catherine Baines, and I'm here today as a resident of Grimsby and an advocate for organ donation awareness. On January 25th, 2024, I received a heart transplant, a life-saving gift that has given me more time with my family and a second chance at life. I am incredibly grateful to my donor, whose selfless decision to say yes to organ donation made this possible. Why I'm here today. In addition to my personal experience, I serve as a board member of the Canadian Transplant Association, Ontario Division. Joining us as well tonight is Kathleen Zavaris, the director of the Ontario CTA. Kathleen received the life-saving gifts of a kidney and a liver and just celebrated her 2-year transplant anniversary on March 22nd. Her story exemplifies the incredible impact of organ donation can have on individuals and their families. As part of our efforts, we are encouraging municipalities across Ontario to proclaim April as Be a Donor Month, to align with the province-wide awareness campaign. I am here today to request that the town of Grimsby officially proclaim April as Be a Donor Month and help raise awareness within our community. Why this matters. Right now, nearly 1,400 people in Ontario are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Every 3 days, someone dies waiting for an organ that never comes. By increasing awareness and encouraging organ donor registration, we can help save lives and provide hope to those in need. How Grimsby can help. Proclaim April as Be a Donor Month and yearly going forward. Host a flag-raising ceremony to commemorate this initiative. Use the town of Grimsby's social media platforms to share information about organ donation throughout the month. Distribute awareness materials such as flyers, pamphlets, posters, and green ribbons within our community. Light up Town Hall in green and encourage other pillars in the community to do so as well. Council members and the community of Grimsby are encouraged to wear green on April 7th, Green Shirt Day, in honor of the Logan Boulet effect and to support organ donor awareness and registration across Canada. As some may recall, on April 6, 2018, Canadians were heartbroken to hear the news of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. Of the 29 passengers, 16 lost their lives. One of those 16 was Humboldt Broncos defenseman Logan Boulet, who succumbed to his injuries on April 7, 2018. Logan's parents, Bernadine and Toby, honored his wishes to donate his organs, saving 6 lives. Logan was inspired by his coach, Rick Sugat, who passed away on June 27, 2017, and donated his organs, saving 6 lives as well. We are encouraged to wear green on April 7th to raise awareness for organ donation and honor heroes like Logan and Rick. Your support in this initiative would not only honor those who have given the gift of life, but also encourage more residents to consider organ donation and register their consent. With your leadership, Grimsby can make a meaningful impact in raising awareness and saving lives. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Questions from council? Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Catherine and Kathleen. I've got to commend you for coming forward, and I got to commend you for all the donors that you've just mentioned, and I'm sure there's thousands of others. It's not something I, for one, think about when I wake up in the morning. And I'll be very honest, I've not gone down the road of doing that, but you certainly put a lot of perspective on what it does when you become a donor, saving so many lives. It's just tremendous. I'm flabbergasted. Thank you so much for coming forward and sharing your stories with us. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those kind words. And I would just like to say that as an organ donor, when you register, there's a possibility of you saving up to 8 lives. And with tissue donation, you can help up to 75 people. And I know sometimes it's difficult to think about your own mortality, but really there is no age limit on organ or tissue donation. You can live a long and happy life and leave this world helping others. The oldest organ donor in Canada was 92 years old and donated a portion of their liver to save someone else's life. The oldest tissue donor in Canada was 104 years old.
Wow,
So
that's tremendous.
you can make an impact no matter your age, and you can help so many people at a second chance at life.
I'll be looking for my green shirt on April 7th.
Okay, and make sure you register
Thank you.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor DeVolde.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. A question to our guests this evening. As I understand the process, it is now optional for people to sign up to be an organ donor or not. But in some countries in this world, and I think in Europe primarily, I'm using those as an example, I understand it is a given that everyone is automatically a donor unless you opt out in the other direction. Can you provide any background on, I'll call it lobbying efforts or efforts to convince our governments to try a different approach to organ donor cards?
Wanting that to happen, but I'll let Kathleen speak to that because I know she has some information.
Yes, thank you. That is an excellent question and an excellent movement. We are in the process of looking at that. I've been to Queen's Park last year, and a lot of people are on board. It's sort of, I describe it as peeling an onion. There's so many layers that has to be done. Nova Scotia has it right now, and we're reviewing how it's going there. With the opt-in and the opt-out, it's very important that at the end of the day, the family makes the final decision. So even if we're registered, it's the family that makes that final decision. So it's important that your family knows your wishes because they're more likely to honor your wishes. So that goes also with the opt-in, opt-out. Even if we have the opt-out, the family still makes the final decision. So we are at Queen's Park, we are doing things, we're reviewing other systems that do have that in place. I'm part of another committee, patient advisory committee, and that's one of the things on my to-do list as well. So it needs to be reviewed and definitely something that is on the forefront of everybody's mind for sure. Thank you.
In follow-up to that, you've obviously looked at what our other province has done. You're looking at what other countries have done. Have you found that to be have they found that to be a beneficial road to go down?
We are still reviewing the information. The obstacle that they are finding as well is the family still having the last say. So even with the opt-in, opt-out issue, it comes down to the family. So it's a lot of educating families. Like I said, they're more likely to honor your wishes if they know what your wishes are. So it's important to have that, dinner conversation. Not that, nobody wants to talk about it, but right now, at the end of the day, it's them that makes that final call. So we are in the preliminary stages, but it is beneficial in some things. We just need to work more on having the family on board. You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much, Catherine and Kathleen.
Thank you.
Certainly signing that donor card should be first and foremost on every council member here and members of the community. So
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation? Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolve the delegation from Catherine Baines be received. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Sharwa has moved and Councillor Vardy has seconded to Be a Donor Month proclamation. Again, moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor Vardy. Whereas Be a Donor Month supports organ and tissue donor registration, whereas over 1,600 people in Ontario are on the wait list, and every 3 days someone dies waiting for a life-saving organ transplant, and whereas research shows the majority of Ontarians support organ and tissue donation, yet just 35% of eligible Ontarians have registered their consent to donate, and whereas families almost always consent to donation when there is evidence a loved one has registered their decision to donate, but the absence of a registered donation decision, families consent only half of the time. And whereas everyone is a potential organ donor and tissue donor, regardless of age, one organ donor can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of up to 75 more through the gift of tissue. Therefore, I, Mayor Jeff Jordan, on behalf of Grimsby Council, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Be a Donor Month in the town of Grimsby and encourage all citizens to learn more about organ and tissue donation and transplantation and consider pledging their support to Be a Donor Month by registering at beadonor.ca. All in favor? And that's carried. Up next, we have Chair's reports. Councillor DeFlavio, can you please give your report?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of items at the Public Works Committee meeting this past week. The first one was a discussion of the in-road flexible signage program. For those, just to refresh people's memory, we, for the last few years, have been piloting the in-road flexible signage pilot program. You might have seen the 50-kilometer-an-hour sign in the middle of the road, or the bollards on either side in some cases that are meant to reduce speeds. Our programs have been very successful in reducing excessive speeds. They were relatively easy to implement, and they were cost effective. The cost of installation was approximately $1,500 per location. They don't interfere with existing driving patterns. They could be removed easily in the wintertime for maintenance, for snow removal. So the staff and committee concur that it should be moved from a pilot to a permanent program that we have in place. They're going to choose 6 to 8 locations. It's been budgeted for already this year. The locations haven't been spelled out yet, but those are coming soon to a Public Works Committee near us, I'm sure. They would be based on where they saw the most effective use of the pilots over the past few years. Their staff is trying to come up with a standard template about where and how to use the devices and what's most effective. There was some discussion about consulting the TMP, which we're in the process of doing right now, the traffic management plan that we're in the process of completing, and all of this hopefully will be implemented in conjunction with that as it comes forward. Next, we had the annual performance report for sanitary and stormwater systems. The whole point of this is to see that they're working properly, to ensure compliance with Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks regulations. Our sanitary systems, of course, are what we traditionally call sewers. They collect wastewater from homes and businesses around town and send them to Niagara Region's Baker Road treatment plant. And the stormwater systems are for rain, and of course, this time of year when snow melts, they collect runoff using sewers, culverts, ditches, and stormwater ponds. And people who have ponds in their neighborhood, in newer neighborhoods, those are all part of our stormwater system. What we've been doing recently is CCTV cameras in the systems to make sure that they're functioning properly, to make sure that there is no crossover. What you don't want is stormwater getting into the sewage system, because as we know, the cost of treating sewage water is very expensive, and when those lines cross over, you're getting water that doesn't need to be treated in the same way as sewage water being treated in the same way, which of course is kind of a waste of taxpayers' money. Now, fortunately in Grimsby, we don't have a lot of this occurring, but we've got a system in place, a company that we've hired out, where we've got cameras in the ground trying to catch these. We've gotten 3 over the last year in the process of looking for these, and we continue to do that over the next 2 years. On ongoing maintenance and infrastructure investments are really important when it comes to that, and I think the town of Grimsby is doing a great job in constantly reinvesting in aging infrastructure and making sure that in the long term, our infrastructure is sustainable. We had under other business, we had a brief discussion about the automatic speed enforcement on Livingston and Main Street. You'll see the resolution in the minutes that the committee put forward. It's mostly regarding how the region is going to implement those speeds across Livingston and Main Street, just getting more information, asking for a clarification as far as signage is concerned, and a couple of other items. And there was a discussion of the asset management study and what the next step is as well. To refresh people's memory, the asset management is the idea that we keep track of all the value of all of the infrastructure and, well, not just infrastructure, everything that the town owns, builds, maintains, and we budget accordingly so that we can replace that infrastructure as it ages out. And so there's a discussion about how that's going to work. There's coming soon to a neighborhood near you, for those who live in the Dorchester neighborhood, that Nellis-Dorchester sidewalk that is going to get people safely down Nellis and Dorchester to Nellis Public School is coming in, and construction should be completed. The goal is to have it completed before September. So I'll leave it at that. If there are any questions that I can help answer, I'm happy to do that. Mayor, thank you.
Any questions for Councillor DeFlavio? No, seeing none. Councillor DeVoli, can you give your finance report?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. The Finance Committee met just this past Thursday on March 27th, 2025, had a number of very detailed reports, and so I'm going to try and summarize them as briefly as I can, but they are some very important reports too. So the first one was the required report of our annual building permit fees for 2024, and all we can say is that at the end of the day, you know, we keep track of the revenues in that and the expenses related to it, and then they must be kept separate in a separate reserve fund. And the revenues certainly do change every year based upon the number of buildings and building permits and applications and things like that. I will say that 2024 was a bit of a slower year, and so we have a small decrease in that reserve fund happening in this particular 2024. There was another report from our fire department on our rescue decontamination washer project, and we had applied for a grant for that. And unfortunately, the amount of grant that was approved was less than what we had budgeted for. So there is a budget amendment request that's part of that to still allow us to, the fire department, to go forward and to purchase the decontamination washing project, and so that also will impact and it will be funded out of our fire equipment replacement reserve. So that's the second consent report. And the third one, as always, was an update on the Peach King Center, and we are pleased to say that we are still on budget and on track with that project. Moving along through our report, we also had the statement of remuneration and expenses for members of council and council appointees to our boards. That must be made public, and so it's attached to our agenda as a report. You're welcome to go and see it there, but after tonight's meeting, in the next short while, it will be posted to the website as well for everyone to see. The next item that we had discussion and reviewed was how our portfolio investments did in 2024. And I mean, we must invest in very, very conservative things. That's mandated to us under the Municipal Act. So, you know, we're not into the stock market and things like that by and large, but we had an average rate of return of 4.84% on our investments, which means between our investments and what we earned on our bank account, we earned just over $4 million last year, which is good. That goes a long ways. Some of that, of course, will go to the applicable reserve fund and the trust fund, but the rest by and large is there for operations. The report after that then came to us was a report on the, on the international plowing match that is coming with a request of $15,000 to support that. There will probably be more requests and more money needed to support this very large event coming to our town in the fall of 2025. But for now, the request is a $15,000 budget amendment, and that it would be funded from the levy program contingency and stabilization reserve. Almost at the end, there was also a second request from our fire department. And it has to do with the drones that we want to purchase in that department, and with some IT upgrades to our fire station number 2. Again, kind of the same issue we're running into is that the fire department was budgeting for a grant in order to help with these drones. And so far, any fire department that we have talked to across the province has not heard at all on whether their grant applications are being approved. But we do want to move forward with it. And so the request is to allow the department to move forward to fund it from the fire equipment reserve. And should we get positive results back and eventually hear about the grant would then go back into the reserve to replenish it. At the same time, there's also a request to move up an IT project for Fire Station 2 from 2026 to 2025, and again to be funded from the fire equipment reserve, as was mentioned. And the last, I will say, major report that, I take that back, if I might just finish. 2 reports. One is the Finance Committee and the Finance Department. We're doing a review of our procurement bylaw, and it is included there. So we basically, the Finance Committee had approved it the meeting before that, but we wanted our legal counsel to take a look at it, and at the same time to also look at it from the perspective of buying Canadian, incorporating that in there too. And so we have some new recommendations, and basically in that procurement bylaw, we have increased the limits for staff based upon inflation and changes in the last little while, so that they can, I will say informally, behind the scenes, make sure that we are doing that. As well, there is an Appendix D that will be attached to that as well, which will allow us to be a little flexible in terms of always putting forward things that are Canadian versus others. We still have to be practical about this, and we can't chase it down to the 9th degree, but as much as possible, we want to support our Canadian businesses. And then the last item on the agenda, which is a really important one as well, and there's a very detailed report that came to Finance, has to do with the staff's preliminary calculation of our surplus or deficit for 2024. And I would say it's a bit of a good news, bad news story. Not that I think we were surprised at all, but there is approximately a $500,000 surplus from operations. Unfortunately, $2.2 million deficit from wastewater. That is explained in the report about the region and the calibration error that they found. And then an estimate of what the downtown business improvement area's surplus or deficit will be. And again, all of these, we will still be waiting for the audit to be completed. It is going to be starting very soon. And once those numbers are finalized, then for sure they will be finalized. And you'll see in the report the recommendations from staff, which the Finance Committee endorsed, as to the various reserves that these surpluses would then be approved to be put for 2024. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the previous minutes? Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the following minutes be approved. Council, March 17th, 2025. Public Works Committee, March 26th, 2025. And Finance Committee, March 27th, 2025. All in favor? That's carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the council endorsement packages? All right, Councillor Vardy, then Councillor Shawa.
Through you, I'd like to lift something from 9.3 Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee.
All right. Councillor Shawa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I'm actually going to be lifting something from Joint Fire Services as well, but I was going to do it in the board minutes. So if you need me to do it at the same time as Councillor Vardy, I'm happy to do that. And also 9.1 Grimsby Economic Development Advisory Committee. Joint Fire Services. I prepared a motion for this, so, in regards to the report. So I'm happy to, like I said,
Yeah, which
through
report?
the,
Is it 6.1A?
the report, geez. Sorry, I have it here. Yes, Fire Department accomplishments. So I have a prepared motion for that.
All right, so we'll do that at the receipt of board minutes portion of the meeting.
Okay.
Councillor DeVoley?
Yes, Mayor Jordan, I just wanted to speak to the resolution coming from Joint Fire Services on manufacturing fire trucks in Canada. So if that's appropriate at that point, thank you.
Yeah, no, you can speak on that now.
Thank you. So at the Joint Fire Services Committee meeting of March 18th, we had some discussion about the impact that the tariffs will have on our fire department. And although you see a very lengthy resolution in front of you this evening, as part of that, we also asked the chief to go back and, again, to review the vendors that they've been dealing with, the products and supplies that they've been acquiring, because a number of these products do come from the U.S. Sometimes they come through the U.S. and then are ultimately assembled here in Canada. But there was, a very lengthy and involved discussion about the impact that tariffs will have. And it would appear that of all the departments that we have, it is the fire department that could have some impact from the tariffs. Now, the good part is we just finished buying a very expensive piece of equipment, our new aerial truck, and so that is done, paid for, and so on, and that is good, because that truly kind of makes its way through the U.S. and ultimately comes to us. And so we don't have another one imminent in the works, so that part is good, the good news. But you'll see in front of you a very long resolution, because the Joint Fire Services Committee really agonized about it. And at the end of the day, the resolution is really asking council, both the Town of Lincoln Council and the Town of Grimsby Council, to call on the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario and to really try and explore opportunities to support the manufacturing of fire trucks, emergency response vehicles, it's not just fire trucks, and to really work on promoting that particular sector where there is some vulnerability. At the moment, we understand that the tariffs exempt some of these types of purchases, but that's not to say that one morning someone wakes up and changes that. So it's really asking council to endorse this recommendation, and will be sent to various ministers and so on, and asking them to not forget and to work in this particular area for all of us.
Great. Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. The matter I wanted to be raised, and it may be that my colleague here, her motion addresses this, but the Joint Fire Services accomplishments for 2024, I'd like that report to be circulated to all staff, or better yet, a presentation made to council. That's your motion. So I'll turn it over to my colleague here.
All right, go ahead, Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. Victoria, would you like me to read it or send it to you right now, quickly? Sure. So it's basically, without explaining it, same thing. I thought the report was essential in order for us to come up to, have all the information for the potential extension of this new full fire service that we're looking at for the third party. And there was a lot of good information, and only 2 members of council have heard this, and unfortunately, there's no video recording. So I had asked if we could have Deputy Jim Kay come and present it to council.
To you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we need a motion for it. We'll take it back and we'll make that happen.
That's great, thank you. I do have a motion if you need it.
Yeah, I think we'll just get this as direction from staff, and I think we can handle it internally.
that's great.
And we'll get it back to council for.
Perfect, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor DeVoley.
A question, and I realized at that meeting, although it was, the report is from the Fire Chief Hudson, but the report, there was also reports that went to corporate services, I'm going to say, the month before that. Did it not include this exact same report at that time? Yes, because I thought by the corporate services met first and received this report, and then Joint Fire was scheduled in the weeks following that and got the very same report. So this report has actually come twice to 2 different committees already. But certainly if the other members of council would like to hear it presented verbally, I'm sure that can be done. Just to also share, though, one of the things that the Joint Fire Services Committee purposes are, one of its responsibilities is to further the education and knowledge base of our fellow councillors as well. And so there was some discussion as well at that meeting about putting together information and having, I'll call it, like a continuing education session or something like that for both the members of Grimsby and Lincoln's Council, not a group one of the 2 of us together, but a separate one for each of the councils. And so that is also in the works.
All right, seeing no further discussion, moved by Councillor DeVoley, second by Councillor Sharwa, resolved that the following council endorsement packages be approved. GDAC, March 6, 2025, Age Friendly Advisory Committee, March 18, 2025, Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee, March 18th, 2025. Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee, March 2025. All in favor? That's carried. Now can I have a mover and seconder to receive the board minutes?
Sorry, I had asked to talk, to lift the Grimsby
we'll just get the mover
Development.
and seconder to get it on the floor, and then we can talk about, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, and seconder, Councillor Howe. Go ahead, Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I just had some questions, potentially for Councillor Frick as the chair of GDAC. If you can just provide some information about the ambassador program, requirements, what you're looking for, responsibilities, and if there's compensation, and also how they're selected. Yes, all that information. Couldn't find all of it, and there's no meeting.
Go ahead, Councillor Frick.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. The ambassador program is actually in process right now. There is a very long and very strenuous set of criteria for anyone who would like to be an ambassador on that program. It's kind of like an executive level type of people we're looking for. Have to live in the community or work in the community or manage businesses in the community. There is no compensation for these positions. I think we made that clear before, but there's no compensation. These are volunteer positions. We will be going through the selection process. We actually received about 18, 19 applications from the community. We will be going through the selection process in the next 2 weeks. We'll be putting together a selection committee to interview these folks. And from that, we will come out with a final number and a final list of ambassadors. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yes, it does. Thank you. The compensation I wasn't clear on. I had heard from somebody who had applied that there wasn't compensation. I thought for some reason in our budget, we had budgeted a certain amount for this ambassador program, but I'm happy to hear that there is nothing.
No, sorry. Yeah, what's in the budget? Sorry, Mr. the Mayor. What's in the budget was some funds to run the program, but not for compensation for the ambassadors. They're totally 100% volunteer positions. And we will obviously share that with council once we get to that level, which will be probably about 2 weeks from now. So I will get back to you with more information, but I can't name names right now. So thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I just might add, if you go on the Grimsby website, you can see all the information about the ambassador program, if that's helpful to people.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Resolve the following board minutes be received. GDAC, March 6, 2025. Age-Friendly Advisory Committee, March 18, 2025. Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee, March 18, 2025. Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee, March 20th, 2025. All in favor? And that's carried. Up next, we have announcements. The first announcement, on behalf of Councillor Korstanji, I want to advise council and the public that she will be taking a leave of absence. And another announcement today, earlier today, we met here at Town Hall with Major Refrigeration. We're happy to announce that Major Refrigeration is the new naming sponsor for the Peach King Center. So the official name is going to be Major Refrigeration Peach King Center. And we're really excited as the construction moves along to have this major investment by Major Refrigeration. Just shows how a local business can really give back to the community and really has come to the forefront to make this new facility even better than it's already going to be. And just on behalf of GDAC, I think Councillor Frake has a little bit to add to this.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I don't want to belabor it anymore, but yeah, I got to meet Marty and Jordan about a year ago when they were making the expansion on the escarpment to Major Refrigeration. And we got into some discussions about, they wanted to get involved in the community and wanted to contribute to the town. They're both very sports-oriented, both guys. And they're just a gentleman. They both live in town, so they pay taxes residentially. So they have a business in town, so they pay business taxes. And now they have contributed to the Peach King Center. And after some negotiations, and these guys were just so thrilled to be, a serious part of the community and a serious part of the Peach King Center. So I commend them for coming forward, and I think this was a great day. They've contributed. Can I say the number? How much they contributed? Yeah, they contributed about $500,000 to the Peach King Center over a period of years. But anyway, yeah, over a period of 5 years, sorry. Yeah, so anyways, I'm sure we'll hear more from them. And again, thank you. If you're out there listening, thank you very much on behalf of council. Thank you, Mayor Jordan.
All right, any further announcements? Councillor Howe?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Most of us are aware that we've got a larger-than-life personality in this town that most of us know, Mike Williscraft. Well, he must be as old as me because he has also been just put into the Ontario Community Newspaper Association Hall of Fame. It's not bad for a fella that's been with us for see, well, I've been in town 40 years. It seems like he's been here a lot longer than that, but a long time. I'll go back to, I guess, the first real tweak or being a fan for the town was being over there in the big field, over in the football field at GSS on a cold night. And I think there was about 12,000 of us. And we were out there for the keeping of the hospital, because that's when the talk was all in. And Mr. Williscraft was certainly a proponent and a champion for our town and the hospital, as well as a whole bunch of other things. So congratulations to Mike Williscraft.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. April 2nd is World Autism Day. As a special education teacher and somebody who has family members with autism, I just want to remind people that April 2nd is just one day a year that we take to recognize and advocate those who have autism, those who live with autism, and it's a Light It Up Blue initiative. So if you have a blue T-shirt or something that you can wear that day to remind people that mine says I love someone with autism, but you could just have a blue T-shirt and it's just one small thing that you can do to recognize that children in the case that I know living with autism need help, need assistance, and we need to recognize that. Also this past week, the first event in the Authors Series, the spring event in the Authors Series happened. Emily Austin and Deepa Rajagopalan were at the library. It was a great event, sold out again. They had to add seats, actually. The next one coming up on April 25th is Rachel Fan and Georgia Taves, and May 23rd is Leanne Zhang and Linwood Barkley, who's been here, I think, 4 or 5 times. If you haven't read Linwood Barkley's novels, they're highly entertaining, easy reads, and he's popular with authors like Stephen King. You know, Stephen King has written the foreword on the blurbs on a bunch of his novels. That's how well known he is throughout the world. So if you have an opportunity to go, I suggest you go. Those are the 2 that I wanted to mention. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sharwell.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I just wanted to quickly let residents know in Ward 3 that although Councillor Kristangi is off right now, there's a forward to send me the information. I'm still there, and I do communicate with Councillor Kristangi still regularly, so she's still in the loop. So when she comes back, if she comes back, she will know what's going on. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further announcements, can I have a mover and seconder to get the council compensation review report on the floor for discussion? Councillor Howe, Councillor DeVolde. Discussion? Councillor Howe.
If I can, Chair. If you open it up, I've got it on my screen, and on page 2 of 6. And there's one little addition that I would like to make where it refers to the obtaining collecting data sets on council wages, benefits, technology, and mileage and travel. I think what's missing on there is conferences and education. Now, I didn't know if maybe education comes under benefits, but there's those, everybody incorporates that into the various costing. So if they could be added in on that line.
Go ahead, Tori.
Through the mayor, yes, typically those types, both conferences and education can fall under benefits, but we'll make sure to highlight that regardless of what solution we go with moving forward.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff with a question. Our current compensation, it's automatically indexed to staff raises, right? So when staff gets a cost of living raise, council gets a cost of living raise, is that correct?
Go ahead, CIO.
Yes, that's correct, for the cost of living adjustment. Yeah.
Okay, so Mayor, I just wanted to make sure before I made the statement. So our salaries automatically go up as we negotiate with staff a fair compensation. I don't think there's any need to do a review. It's not that I have any huge opposition to it. I just don't think it's a good use of staff time. I don't think it's, even though the estimated cost is not huge, I don't think it's a good use of taxpayers' money. I just don't think it's necessary. And I think that the most recent one is recent enough for us to rely on it. And I think that our compensation, none of us gets into this job for the money. I don't think that any compensation review is going to show a significant change, frankly, in what other similar municipalities are getting paid. If we had a reason to believe that there was some sort of huge discrepancy between our pay and other councils, whether it was we were getting paid or we were getting more or less, then I would say yes. But I just don't see any need for this, so I'm going to be voting against it just because I don't think it's necessary. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. I'm going to quite echo what Councillor DeFlavio just said, and I don't think this is something we need to be spending our resources on right now. I think we've got bigger fish to fry. I'd even would go a step further to say that I think a lot of these positions up here should be volunteer and not even needing compensation. So unless we were to review it to go in the downward direction, I don't think we need to do this.
Councillor Sharwell.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I didn't want to make a big deal of this. However, I would have to debunk some of the statements already made. We're actually quite low in comparison to other municipalities that are larger, and I would say that we also have a very a busy municipality as far as, we do have a lot of residents and businesses that do require our attention. And I think when we are not compensating people that are taking time away from their families, it really weakens the pool of people that step up. So I think, you don't know everybody's situation. And so in order to suggest somebody does this for free is not a fair statement. So I'm going to ask that we do have this review, that we pick the less costly option of $6,000 so that we do get the most qualified, the most passionate, the most authentic people on this council. Thank you.
Councillor DeVoley.
Thank you. When I hear some of the comments, I too would like to say that we don't have the data. We don't really know. I personally have done a brief review, as sounds like my fellow councillor has too, looking at other municipalities around us, but that is the whole point of an independent study, is to actually look at other municipalities, look at comparable municipalities, and look at what councillors are being compensated and then compare it to ours. So at this point in time, I would say we don't really know. Until we go ahead and do this study, we are only assuming. And maybe some of my fellow councillors have very generous hearts, and they're saying, I would do this for free, or I would do it for less, or whatever, and that is lovely. You are always welcome to make donations to the town if you feel that way, and donate some of your compensation back to the town. But at the end of the day, this is about a study and about gathering information and basing decisions on fact, and not just what I'll say is kind of hearsay or best impressions. It's about actually gathering up facts. So the question in front of us tonight from our staff is really, do we wish to go the route of appointing a citizens committee to provide recommendations to this council and to work with a consultant, or just to take the lesser option, and the lesser option involves less consultant time, which is why it is the lesser options, to do that study and provide it directly to us. And I will share with my fellow councillors that, I'd be happy to go either way. I think it's important that we gather the data and that we actually base a decision on data, not just impressions or feelings. What are the advantages? Yes, the advantage of a citizens committee is that it's going to remove a bit of what I will call the politics of the situation, and that we're going to have an independent committee that would be working with the consultant and then reporting back to us, as opposed to coming back to us. Either way, we're going to get a report, and we're going to be deciding at that point in time. And if some of my fellow councillors, I would ask you not to prejudge what those options are going to be, right? The options could be that a raise is indicated. The option could be stay where you are. The option obviously could be that in order to be comparable, you need to decrease your wages too. And so I'd like us to keep an open mind and wait until we have the data to actually find out.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just think with any sort of government organization, this is just a part of good governance. It should be done every 5 or 6 years, and that's what we're aiming to do. And like others, I'm not married to the results. I don't think anybody here is doing this for the money. There are times this job is, we're dealing with sometimes with quite complicated issues that the public may not even realize how complicated an issue is. I do think that there is a value to what we do, and I'm fine with being compensated for something that's of value. But generally speaking, it's just good governance. It's just the way you should run a business. So thank you.
Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, through you. So we're bringing on a consultant, but most council pays, it's all public information. So you can easily just look around to other municipalities, and to our neighboring ones, we are currently reimbursed more than our neighbors to the east of us in Lincoln. So I can't imagine us being much more than we already are in relation to them. So, and even if it were to go up to the claim that it would bring a higher quality of candidates, I don't think $200-300 change is going to make that difference. I think this is something we don't need to spin our tires on, and I guess I'll leave it at that.
Just further to your comment, Councillor Brazzi, just a point of clarification. Having a consultant analyze the data is something that's impartial, third party, and certainly it's in my opinion that it is needed. And just like the ward boundary review, which when we were elected, the three of us here in 2018 and again in 2022, the ward boundary review hadn't been done since 1993. So it's something that now as a council going forward, doing these reviews, say every 5 years, just makes us follow with the times and just having a much more efficient municipality. Councillor Sharwell.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. And also, I would just like to correct that as well, that if you look at West Lincoln, they're actually compensated quite a bit more favorably when you compare with our population. But anyhow, so I'm going to actually just ask that we put forward a motion for option B, third-party consultant, and find out what other municipalities are doing, including Haldimand as well, would be great. Thank you.
Can I point of clarification? Does the councillor know how many councillors there are in West Lincoln?
I don't know offhand. However, I would say that given the fact that they're under 15,000 and they get quite a few, less, 6, yes. Yes, and I bet if you actually spoke with them, they probably are having to.
Yeah, we just need a seconder for
Thank you.
Councillor Shawa's option B. Councillor DeVoley is seconder. We can vote on e-scribe for that. All right, and that's carried. I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor moved by Councillor Shawa, second by Councillor DeVoley. Resolved that report TC 25-07, Council Compensation Review dated March 31st, 2025 be received, and that Council approve option B and direct staff to implement the required next steps, and that Council approve the recommended cost to be funded from the levy program contingency and stabilization reserve. Up next, Councillor Bradzi has moved and Councillor DeFlavio has seconded the motion on a governance review for the Niagara region. Are there any questions from Council? Governance review? Questions or comments? Go ahead. Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Well, I thought we had left this behind us in the last term. And I believe the province has also left this behind them. And I don't know why all of a sudden this is coming back to haunt us again, because the province is not pushing it. I've spoken to some MPPs that I know, and they're not engaged with this at all. I've spoken to some of the folks in the community, and the community is certainly not in favor of it. I'm just speaking to the people that I've spoken to. So I know that there's some of the larger municipalities in the region are interested in moving this forward again. I don't know why. Maybe they have an agenda I don't know about. So I'm not in favor of this, and I think that the province has also learned a lesson from the last time around that it's a costly endeavor. It's confusing. I mean, the cost of trying to turn Peel around and do the thing they wanted, that didn't turn out very well, and a few others didn't turn out very well either. So I believe that this is kind of moot at this point in time. That's my thoughts. So I certainly would not endorse this. I just don't. I think we're just spinning our wheels. I think we're just putting our energies in things we really don't need to do right now. If the province brings it back, fine, different story. But right now they're not. And why should this region and why should our municipalities be stepping up and doing that? I don't understand it, and I certainly won't be voting in favor of it. Sorry, my friend, but that's the way I feel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. Councillor Frick and I agree on this. I think I am also not in favor. This is, and I also had asked our MPP's assistant if this was something that was being discussed provincially, and my takeaway was that this is not a priority right now, that the government is focused on trying to keep the economy going and business, so governance review at this time is not a priority. Since it's not a priority for them, it's also not a priority for me, so I'm also going to vote no.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to echo some things that my two fellow councillors have already stated. One, been there, done that. And two, right now we've got way bigger fish to fry on the political landscape, the federal landscape, and even how it affects us at a municipal level, how it will affect businesses with what's happening right now with, the issue of tariffs and what have you, and how our economy is affected. So this just is not a priority, and I don't think we should be moving forward with anything like this right now.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. This item, for all intents and purposes, is a regurgitation of something that came out of Niagara Falls in January, basically the same wording. So we've been there. We didn't do anything with it then, came in the correspondence. And also in this month, the same one came from Wainfleet. So Wainfleet put a doctor, but nobody mentioned it then. So it doesn't mean, to me, no, it's a dead issue. And I'm probably a little bit different than anybody at this table, and I'm looking pretty carefully. I was here in the 90s, and I went through the absolute idiocy of the amalgamation of the municipalities, the way Hamilton was jammed together with no consideration nor thought. Chatham-Kent, jammed together, no thought. Ottawa, jammed together, no thought. Dartmouth, Halifax, no thought. It was the thing to do. And every one of those municipalities are still feeling the effects of it. It was a mistake then, and it would be a mistake now.
Councillor DeVolder.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'm not going to reiterate everything my fellow councillors have just recently said, because I do agree with the last number of comments. I would also just like to add that these issues, as Councillor Howe alluded to, have been studied many, many times. Professor David Siegel from Brock University, who I believe has since retired, it was one of his specialties, and every time there was an amalgamation, he studied the before and after effects of it. Another one that comes to mind is the Fraser Institute, a well-known think tank in this country, who studied the before and after effects of amalgamation. And every time the conclusion was that the amalgamation was more costly and not beneficial to the residents of those communities. I think we had the most recent example in front of us with Peel, Brampton, Mississauga, and so on. And that thing, as we all know, I'll say melted away, ended in, and really, they gave it up and basically said, we're not going to be studying this any further. So I have to say that I support my fellow councillors' comments that this is not the time and the place. If we thought that spending $5,000 or $6,000 to gather data on council compensation was too much, I can absolutely promise my fellow councillors that that number that they're looking at is going to have many, many, many more zeros attached to it. And I would much rather see money spent towards supporting our businesses and the issues that we're going to be facing going forward in the next while. Thank you.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with everything everybody said. I seconded the motion because I feel it's important to have these discussions, and our procedure for bringing a motion forward is very strict in that we can't have a discussion like this without bringing it forward. So I'm glad that we're having the discussion. My concern has never been in governance. It's always been in staffing. I think that if we were to bring something like this forward, it should be looking at redundancies when it comes to departments and staffing between the region and local municipalities. Anytime I look up and I see the two-tier municipality, what I think, if the government does any kind of review like this, would be a better use of taxpayers' money would be looking at departments that are overlapping, like planning is one that comes to mind right off the top of my head. Having a two-step process for planning at the local level is just an extra step required when it comes to building new homes and getting shovels in the ground. So if that was something that the province came back with to us and said, and that's not to do with governance, so I apologize for going off topic, but that's where I would see it making sense. I don't think having Grimsby and having a Lincoln and having a St. Catharines is the problem. I think it's having a Niagara region that has the same staff that the town of Grimsby have is the problem. So that, I would definitely vote in favor of removing that redundancy. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think that I'd like, obviously, I might be the dissenting view here, but I'd like to stand with Niagara Falls and Welland, and at least trying to combat the rising costs, and that is the year-on-year tax increases we've seen from the region. And we talk about wanting to spend our times supporting businesses, but we talk about these hard times, and what that means for businesses is that they're looking back maybe at having to reduce jobs, maybe having to reduce spending in order to combat these rising prices. It is, I think it's incumbent on us to be doing the same thing, which to me, we're talking about a motion that goes back to just look at simply reducing costs, reducing counselors. I'd like to say if this ended up, this study ended up resulting in the removal of my seat, so be it. I'd be completely fine with that. I'm one of the people that 127 politicians in the Niagara region is something that for a long time now people have talked about being too much, and I don't think anybody's ever disagreed with that. But I think it's time to stop talking about that and actually start doing something about it and doing what businesses are doing right now, and that is bracing for hard economic times.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Councillor Bradzi, in the 90s, I heard the same words that just came out of you, the same words to try to justify the amalgamations, and they were, settle down, Donald, the biggest mistake that they made in municipality, in the municipal world in Ontario and probably in Canada. So, but I heard the same words almost verbatim in the 90s. So.
Councillor DeVoley.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. When I think of democracy, I think of it as having representatives who work with the community and are leaders in the community to move ideas forward. And I think what we have in front of us with our southern neighbors is the erosion of democracy and all the good things it stands for. And quite honestly, I don't see fewer elected officials as being a good thing. When I think of what it would take to do this job, if there were half of us around this table, I can tell you I would not work for the same amount of money. And I would probably need an office and some software and perhaps an assistant to share between all of us. And at the end of the day, I guarantee that you will not find those same gifted and experienced people at the table. I could not have done this job if I was working full-time in my business. In my business, I was working at 120% or 125% of the normal hours in the year. And quite honestly, I did a lot of volunteer work on top of that, but not nearly to the extent and the hours that I put in this job right now. And that's okay, because I'm now at a spot in my life where I have the time to devote to things like this. But when I kind of work out, okay, what would it be like if there were fewer politicians? I can tell you there would be more costs, and there would be a completely different mix around this council table than there is now. Right now, I think we actually have a wonderful mix. We have, when we're talking male and females, when we're talking full-time and part-time versus retirees, when we're looking at the different age groups that sit around this table, we actually have a very good mix of people. And when I think of this being a full-time job, how in the world would some of us get that done, having full-time jobs? It would be extremely hard to do that. So I think democracy works very well when there's a reasonable number of us who are there who can divide up our time and, be really close to the residents who live in our communities. And so at the end of the day, always open to finding ways to save money, to do things more efficiently, but I don't think this is one of them. Thank you.
Councillor Frey.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I think we've all gone down into an area where none of us have any control whatsoever. This is not something that we can do. If anything is going to happen with governance in this region and they're going to change the structure that is there now, that's not going to come from us. It's going to come from the province. What are we talking about? We're talking through our hats. Come on. This is something that we're not going to drive. And unless we're going to go out and knock on every single municipality door in this region and ask them if they'll sign up with us, it's not going to happen. It's just not. So anyways, we're getting into an area where I think we're totally out of our depth, totally out of our jurisdiction. And I'd like to call the question.
All right, I'll read the resolution and then we can vote on e-scribe. Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that Council sends a resolution to the province, in particular the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for the province of Ontario, asking for a full review of the governance model and the provincial committee overseeing the study on regional governments in Niagara to find efficiencies for long-term fiscal sustainability of the region, and that a report back to the Grimsby Town Council with any findings, and that the motion be circulated to the Niagara MPPs and all the local municipalities in the region. E-scribe vote, please. And that's defeated. Up next, we move to, I need a mover and seconder for the bylaws. Moved by Councillor DeVoley, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeVoley, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 2517, 2518, and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Next meeting of council is scheduled for April 14th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Can I have a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaws? Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bradzi. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bradzi. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2519 and that same be read a first time, considered, and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Good evening, everyone. Meeting is adjourned. Good night. Thank you.